Hey everyone, it's Ben Hardy here, and in today's video we're going to be comparing the Ford F-350 to the Chevy Silverado 3500. Now I was also going to include a Ram in this comparison, but the transmission blew up before I'm just kidding. I will be doing a three-way comparison in the future. I just wanted to do a two-way for today's video. But anyways, before we get into the review, I do want to give a huge shout out and thank you to the Larich Miller Chevy here in Provo and the Ford here in Provo for providing me with both the trucks. I'm going to include a link to their websites in the description down below so you can check out what they have currently. And then on a side note, if you want to save time and money the next time you purchase a car, link to my car buying guide in the description down below. Let's get into it. Under the hood of the Chevy, we have the 6.6 liter Duramax diesel that goes through a 10-speed automatic transmission. Power outputs are 470 horsepower and then 975 pound-feet of torque. Now, powering the Ford is the high output Powerstroke 6.7 liter turbo diesel that goes through a 10-speed automatic transmission. Power outputs with this are 500 horsepower and then 1200 pound-feet of torque. Now, before you move forward with this review, I do want to mention if you want to see more videos just like this, then I recommend you subscribe because I post content every single day. So starting with the Chevy, this particular LTZ is all blacked out, which I think is really cool. And that also has the cab lights there at the top. And another thing that I love is the new headlight design on the HG. I think that looks really sharp. Now this does have the Z71 package. So notice the air dam on this is actually not too big, but yeah, large front end. And then popping over to the Ford, this one has the Tremor package, which is Ford's off-road package. I know some people would say you should have a ZR2 if you have a Tremor. There is no 3500 ZR2. Anyways, with the Lariat, you can see we've got tons of chrome trim here on the front end, and then the Tremor package makes it so the air dam is a lot smaller, so it helps out with the approach angle. But let me know which front end design you like better. Now, tire and wheel setup here with the Chevy is 275, 65, 20 in the front and over in the rear. And you guys can see with the wheels completely blacked out. And we do have pretty beefy all-terrain tires. And I'm going to take a few steps back so you guys can see the full side profile. Now, something to mention with the Chevy, independent front suspension, solid rear axle in terms of that whole layout. It still has leaf springs in the back. Now with the Ford, our tire and wheel setup is 285, 75, 18 in the front and over in the rear. And you guys can see kind of more like an off-roader style for the wheels and definitely beefier off-road tires. And if I take a few steps back for the side view, definitely has a tall stance with the Tremor package. Now with the Ford, still has solid front and rear axles, leaf spring setup there in the back. Now taking a look at the key fobs, they have the exact same functionality on them, even though they look a little bit different. So tailgate drop down, remote start, lock and unlock. And when it comes to the bed, starting with the Ford, we have a little ruler here on the back. We actually have a tailgate step, which is a pretty cool feature. Got LED lights here, fifth wheel prep, all of that. No bed liner from the factory. And then I do think this automatically raises up. Nope, not with this truck. But anyways, let's go to the Chevy. And popping over to the Chevy, this one has the multi-flex for the step system. So a little bit different than the Ford's. That is for sure, but still built into the tailgate with that setup. And then you guys can see LED lights, fifth wheel prep in this, and yeah, bed liner from the factory. Still have an outlet in this one as well. And then with the tailgate, it's definitely not automatic, so you gotta lift it up yourself too. And then finishing up with the rest of the elements on the back ends, notice that both of them have bumper steps and both of them have bedside steps as well. We all know the Ford kind of copied Chevy on that side of things, but hey, if you can't beat them, copy them, right? Anyways, let me know which design overall you like better with the trucks. Now inside the cab of the Ford, legroom is really good. We've got some cup holders here. You guys can see vents. You got heated seat controls, all of your outlets and everything, and then a really nice trim here on the door panel with a little bit of wood trim. And then headroom back here is good. And then you do have storage underneath the seats. And by the way, look at how nice these seats are back here. Now here's the legroom in the Chevy. Looks pretty much the same. Still have heated seats back here, USBs, all of that. And then you guys can see a little bit different design here with the door panel. Headroom, just as good. And then taking a look at the seats. Nice perforated trim all down the center. You do have the behind the seat storage as well. Now something to note, this Chevy does not have power side steps like the Ford, so a little bit harder to get into. Now up front, some key stuff here in the Ford. We do have the mirror extension function. The mirrors do have blind spot monitoring. We also have memory seats. And then you guys can see all of our light controls, automatic lights. We have our pedal adjustment as well. And then with the steering wheel, you got a bunch of practical controls like adaptive cruise control. You got a column shifter with a manual mode. Full digital gauge cluster here with the Ford. And then when it comes to the camera system, 360, pretty good resolution. And you can kind of change through the different viewpoints here with the camera system as well. Big infotainment system. It's got like a little auxiliary tab. You got the main screen. Responds pretty well. And again, you got the little function for the running boards. Now, being a diesel, it's probably hard to see this, but we got a diesel exhaust brake there at the top. Got to trust me on that. You got that for the camera system, your parking sensor, stability control, off-road cruise control. And then this does come with heated and ventilated seats, dual zone climate heated steering wheel. We have a 2-speed transfer case with trail turn assist, which is pretty cool. You got the drive mode select too, and then you have a rear locking differential. Got this nice wood trim that kind of covers up that little area with the wireless phone charging pad. Decent storage here in the center, and then you got a big center console. Goes in very, very deep. Like, you guys can't even see because it goes in so deep. Double glove box as well, which is always important with trucks because of the storage aspect. And then we do have a power sliding rear window with this. 6 auxiliary switches here, and the window sticker is in this Ford. So you guys can see the total MSRP on this one is $89,090. Let's pop in the Chevy. Now the Chevy also has fancy mirrors that extend out, got memory seats, got blind spot monitoring with the mirrors. We have more advanced 4-wheel drive system, I'd say, because we do have 4-wheel auto, still have a 2-speed transfer case. It also has a heads-up display, which is pretty cool. Drive mode select just like the Ford. Big digital gauge cluster, also like the Ford. Also has adaptive cruise control. Manual shift there on the column shifter, so lots of similarities. And then as for the infotainment system itself, a little bit different, but still horizontal layout. Still has like an auxiliary tab. So again, there's so many similarities with these trucks. It's very interesting. 360 camera system here. So I think that's good. It seems like the resolution is maybe a little bit better on the Chevy, but they're really close. Got a diesel exhaust brake with this. You guys can see stuff for the parking sensors, lane departure, tailgate drop down, hill descent control. Now at Chevy, they use the G80 locker, so it's an automatic locking rear differential, so it's not selectable like the Ford. Dual zone climate, heated and ventilated seats. Got trailer brake controls from the factory. A little bit different with the storage here. I will say this center console doesn't seem to go as deep as the Ford, so the Ford center console probably a little bit more practical. But have a double glove box nonetheless, just like the Ford. And it looks like this one has a camera rear view mirror. And then the MSRP on this truck is $84,195. Let's talk about visibility before we set off. Here's visibility of the hood, and hope you can see the heads-up display in the Ford. Both the mirrors, do a blind spot ring, throughout the rest of the rear. And, well, let's set off. These trucks are actually extremely similar. The biggest difference, in my mind, with these trucks is actually the axle situation, right? Independent front suspension with the Chevy, whereas you have a solid front axle here with the Ford. But in terms of like the powertrain layout and everything, they both have a 10-speed, they both have V8 diesels, and so yeah, it seems like there's more similarities than differences. The biggest difference would be the Ram, if we had that in this situation, in terms of how that is. Okay, anyways, other than the Ford beeping at me, seats are really comfortable in the Ford, so I think that's a big plus. And then it seems like it's so smooth. Yeah, powertrain's really smooth. It's the one thing I do like about this 10-speed, and the one thing I do like about the V8 diesels is the smooth aspect of the powertrain. It definitely creates what I would say a very enjoyable daily driver experience. And it's also good, it's good towing as well. I mean, again, this has just, I mean, you'll see insane amount of torque, which I guess we have, since we have a sport mode. No, we don't have a sport mode in this. I thought we had a sport mode. But you guys will see with the torque here. It's probably gonna cut power because, yeah. It's fast. It's very fast for a diesel pickup truck. Like, a diesel pickup truck has no right to be this powerful, but it is. 500 horsepower, 1,200 pound-feet of torque. Who would have thought that you could buy a truck with that much power with a factory warranty? It's just insanity. But yeah, it drives well despite the fact that it has a solid front axle. It's very comfortable. It'll be interesting to see the suspension comfort difference, but Ford does a really good job with suspension comfort despite, you know, everything that's going against this truck. It's an HD with HD suspension. It's got a solid front axle. It's got a lot that should make it extremely uncomfortable, and it's surprisingly comfortable for an HD truck. So with that being said, let's pop in the Chevy. Well, let's talk about visibility before we set off in the Chevy. Here's your visibility of the hood, and hopefully you can see the heads-up display. Both the mirrors, tube blind spotting through the rest of the rear. And Silverado Way. Different feel right off the bat. So you'd think the turning radius would be a lot better with this, with the independent front suspension. It doesn't feel all that different, to be honest. Feels pretty similar right off the bat. Good torque. I mean, at least at low speeds, I don't really feel a power deficit, but see what happens when you get the full-blown acceleration. Seats aren't as comfortable as the Ford. Suspension, though, pretty similar. I will say I'm impressed that the Ford suspension is as comfortable as this is, given the fact that the solid front axle should make it not comfortable. So Ford's done a really good job with their suspension setup on that to make it that comfortable. Steering's definitely a little bit lighter on this truck. It's an interesting thing. Haven't noticed that before, to be honest. And it's interesting to see the difference with the interiors. They both, I mean, they both feel, they don't feel like, one doesn't feel necessarily more premium than the other, just different. It's a good way to put it. And it seems like overall cabin installation's pretty similar with both of them. Both the powertrains are about the same in terms of volume too. I think the Duramax might be a little bit quieter. Yeah, you do feel the power deficit. Like, you do feel, this doesn't feel as quick as the Ford, but it's still quick. It's not as big of a difference as you might think given the numbers on paper, but there's a difference. It's perceivable. So to cap things off, man, this is tough with the end of the comparison. I really like both the trucks, honestly. I will say though, the one thing I am concerned about, and I don't know if this concern is founded in reality, but I worry about how much power that Ford's pushing. Like, is that going to last outside of the warranty? This, you know, it doesn't have as much power, but like, is this powertrain under less stress, you know, with everything that it has? I don't, you know, again, I'm not an engineer, but like, that's just a thought that I have. Outside of that though, man, it would honestly be a tough choice. The Chevy is a little bit more affordable, so that does kind of elevate it a bit. Let me know which route you would go. I definitely think there's pros and cons to both of them, but yeah, the end of this comparison is a lot tighter than I expected it to be. So yeah, I guess it is kind of expected also though, because they're so similar.